seniors through daily programs, custom care, and hospitality in assisted living and memory care. 2 Houston area locations. More at belmontvillage.com/Houston.
Over on the Katy Freeway, headed in on 10, looking at a new accident before TC Gesture. A spun-out vehicle involved. A couple of left lanes blocked off. Also, West Loop northbound, Service Road, Woodway. They're working that accident. Sunshine upper 50s for the high today. Winds less than they were yesterday, just 5 to 10 miles an hour. 45 for the low tonight. Near 70 for Friday, back into the 50s for Saturday, Sunday. Mid-60s for MLK Day on Monday. We're sitting at 47 right now. Listen anywhere. We're streaming live online at HoustonPublicMedia.org, on our app as well. You can get news when you want it. It's KUHF Houston News 88.7. The service of the University of Houston. It's 9 o'clock.
New reporting raises new questions about outside activity HISD Superintendent Mike Miles has been doing and about his relationship with his former charter school network. I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, what the Houston Chronicle's learned about Miles' role in a contract between a Texas charter school and a consulting firm, and why he appears to have given away HISD's curriculum for free.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, other education news. We look ahead at the year in education in today's installment of our Houston 2026 series. Plus, today's the 25th anniversary of Wikipedia. We mark the day by learning about Houston-area Wikipedia edit-a-thons. And organizers claim the World Cup will bring a lot of money to Houston, but who sees it? We discuss. We'll start with a news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota. This comes after federal authorities say an ICE agent shot and wounded a Venezuelan immigrant in Minneapolis yesterday. Authorities say the agent feared for his life. That's what federal officials said last week when another ICE agent shot and killed a woman in the city. There have been many protests, and most of them have been peaceful in Minnesota. The Pentagon says U.S. forces have seized another tanker ship in the Caribbean. U.S. Southern Command says the oil tanker ship was under U.S. sanctions. The U.S. military has taken several tankers that it says are able to carry sanctioned Venezuelan oil. The Pentagon says that the only oil that can leave Venezuela will be coordinated properly and lawfully. This development comes as President Trump is set to welcome Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado to the White House today. That happens more than a week after the U.S. deposed Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. NPR's Carrie Kahn reports Trump has also thrown his support behind Venezuela's interim leader and its existing government.
Machado has tried to win back Trump's support, heaping praise on him in media interviews and pledging to share her Nobel Peace Prize. But Trump has signaled for now his support is solidly behind Venezuela's interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, with whom Trump says he recently had a good conversation. Machado's political party is widely seen as the legitimate winners of the 2024 presidential election that then leader Nicolas Maduro claimed to have won. Machado led huge protests and, according to multiple recent polls, remains widely popular inside Venezuela. However, following the U.S. military action, Trump surprisingly dismissed Machado and has diminished calls for new elections and democratic reforms. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Rio de Janeiro.
Stocks opened higher on Wall Street this morning as crude oil prices fall. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose about 210 points in early trading.
Mass demonstrations in Iran had briefly pushed crude oil prices higher, but those prices dropped again after President Trump signaled a possible cooling in the Iranian government's crackdown. The benchmark price for crude oil in the U.S. is back below $60 a barrel. Fewer people filed new applications for unemployment benefits last week than the week before. That suggests that even though the pace of hiring has slowed down, layoffs remain relatively rare. As of late December, 2.2 million people were receiving some form of jobless assistance. Asian stocks were mixed overnight, down in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Tokyo, but up in Seoul. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
On Wall Street, the Dow is now up about 220 points. The Nasdaq, meanwhile, is up about 170 points. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from the Lemelson Foundation. dedicated to improving lives through invention, innovation, and climate action. And the William T. Grant Foundation, supporting research to improve the lives of young people at wtgrantfdn.org.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. Houston Metro says it hopes to add law enforcement presence to certain hotspots for crime on its transportation services after a woman was shot and killed on board a bus accidentally last week. The incident happened as a result of the suspect attempting to shoot other people on board. He missed and hit an innocent bystander, killing her. Metro's security manager proposed a 3-year contract with the security company to increase the agency's capability to combat crime. Metro's police chief also signaled upgrades to certain areas prone to crime in terms of security. Tickets to the Houston Rodeo go on sale today for artists like Chris Stapleton, Kelly Clarkson, and Lizzo. News 88.7's Michael Adkison explains what you need to know before you get in line for tickets.
Not all tickets to the rodeo go on sale at the same time. The Houston Livestock Show and rodeo tickets will go on sale in 2 waves based on the date of the performance. Concerts between March 2nd and 11th, like Lizzo and Luke Bryan, go on sale at 10 a.m., and concerts between March 12th and 21st, like Chris Stapleton and Lainey Wilson, go on sale at 2 p.m. Waiting rooms go live 30 minutes before each of those sales, and the sale won't be first come, first serve. Instead, guests will be randomly selected from the waiting room to buy tickets. Prices start at $35. You can find more details on the performances and the ticket sale on our website, houstonpublicmedia.org. I'm Michael Adkison, News 88.7.
And interim Harris County Attorney Jonathan Fombon says the Texas Governor Greg Abbott has no authority to take over Harris County's right to operate its own elections. He spoke to Hello Houston about Abbott's threat, which came after State Senator Paul Betancourt said more than 100 county residents were registered to vote on post office boxes.
There are all these checks along the way to make sure that we don't get to the point where a voter who doesn't reside in the right place votes in that place. So like you said, when we talk about fraud, I think what we think of is a voter who's either not allowed to vote, casting a vote, or who's allowed to vote but not allowed to vote in a certain place, casting a vote.
Fombon was sworn in as the new county attorney during Commissioner's Court last week. It's going to be a cold one today, 47 right now, 57 degrees for the high later this afternoon, but we should warm up tomorrow when the high reaches the low 70s. I'm Matt Harab, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Thanks for joining us here on News 88.7 and Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Coming up this hour, the year ahead in education, we learn about Houston-area Wikipedia edit-a-thons, and we discuss the potential economic impact of this year's World Cup matches here in Houston. But first, new reporting raises new questions about outside activity Houston ISD Superintendent Mike Miles has been doing and whether there's a link to his former charter school network. Houston Chronicle reporter Nusaiba Mizan reported Wednesday that Miles helped broker a nearly $1 million contract between a Texas charter school network and a consulting firm, while also providing HISD's curriculum to that network for free. Nusaiba Mizan, good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Miles founded a charter school network before coming to HISD, and this is not the first time that concerns have been raised about Miles' dealings with charter operations. So first of all, tell us about what happened last year.
Yeah, so Spectre News reported that money that was from Texas schools affiliated with that charter system went into a general fund that in part subsidized a Colorado school. And the Texas Education Agency, following that report, had investigated the matter and found no wrongdoing, no violations of state law.
So what's new that you've learned and reported on this week?
Yeah, so these records pertain to another charter system not founded by Miles. It's a Texas charter system called International Leadership of Texas. And there are email records that show that HISD Superintendent Mike Miles had a role in discussing a contract with this charter system in collaboration with a vendor that's based in Colorado called Education Partners.
Is there any link, though, to his old charter school?
Yes. So Education Partners was founded by and run by Dwight Jones, who is the corporate board president of Third Future Schools. So there is a person affiliated with Third Future Schools in this collaboration.
Can you provide any more detail about exactly what kind of role Superintendent Miles played in this communication between this charter network and this firm?
Yeah, so the emails show that he co-authored a initial proposal that ultimately led to a contract. That proposal has a cost breakdown, their initial thoughts on what it would take to raise the student achievement at 5 struggling schools in International Leadership of Texas. And he also, in emails, communicated a cost estimate.
What has the superintendent had to say about this?
So the breakdown included that education partners would support and implement reform initiatives that involved a new curriculum, as well as education partners would train teachers, principals in the summer as well as throughout the year. Their thoughts, education partners and Mike Miles' thoughts regarding the additional investments that International Leadership of Texas would have to do included mention of HISD's curriculum for free. And then if there's any sort of third-party material reference, there would have to be licensing fees. But that would not be paid to HISD. That would be paid to whatever company that material belongs to.
Okay, so all of that is information contained in these emails, is that right?
In the proposal, yeah, that was attached to the email. And then the emails include like a cost estimate as well. So during the process of these emails, he included a revised cost estimate. He said that he forgot the administrative costs for education partners, and so he included a revised estimate. And the contract ultimately was $100,000 more than the initial proposals for cost breakdown.
All right, so after you received these emails, and was that just through like a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request? And so before publishing them, did you reach out to the superintendent for comment?
Yeah, so we reached out to Houston ISD. We requested an interview with a superintendent. Houston ISD answered questions over emails ultimately. And we asked about why he did this, whether the board knew about this, about the curriculum involved. HISD commented that Superintendent Miles received no financial benefit from these communications and this role. They also said that we asked whether the board knew about this, the board of managers of Houston ISD, and they said that Superintendent Miles received no compensation, and therefore the board did not need to know.
Strictly speaking, is he breaking any laws here?
Not to my knowledge.
Is there any reason to think that there's anything necessarily inappropriate about doing this?
I think that one of the questions we asked experts, and we asked experts across the country, was that, is there a comparable scenario in this? Like, is there any sort of rules or conventions involved here? And experts said that this scenario is very unusual. They were not familiar with a comparable scenario. And largely said that, best practices is that you let the board know if you're going to do outside work, you refer to your contract and you follow whatever contract. Of course, a contract is unique to whatever a school district and a superintendent end up on. So they kind of talked about best practices being transparency and following the contract, transparency maybe in understanding whether that is in compliance with the contract.
Well, in his contract, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, does allow him to do some outside work like this, right?
Yeah, there is a paragraph on writing and speaking and training activities, as well, essentially kind of devoted to outside work. And he has a very specific exception pertaining to third future schools, actually, not International Leadership of Texas, named in the contract.
Is HISD maybe passing up financial value of some kind by what it sounds like could be potentially giving away its own curriculum for free through this process?
Yeah, that's the question. I think when I talked to experts about whether there was a comparable scenario about giving curriculum away, one of the things that came up in experts' responses, well, taxpayer money typically goes to curriculum development. There's a lot of expertise. There's staff power that goes to curriculum development. And Houston ISD does have an in-house curriculum department. They devote more than 100 people to developing curriculum. So there's a lot of focus and expertise that goes into HISD's curriculum.
Is that common, having that much staff devoted to curriculum development, or is that a bit unusual?
It's not unusual to have districts develop curriculum. Usually there's a process. I asked about like kind of what are the general processes. It's like finding out and determining the state standards for a school district, and then sometimes it might, if it deals with another school system, for example, it would be like kind of a brainstorming or sort of communications collaboration in that regard. And so, yeah, there are development processes. It kind of depends on what state you're talking about and what school district, though.
Has Houston ISD, under Superintendent Miles' leadership, ever publicly stated they wanted this new education system curriculum to be available for free to outside organizations, district schools, what have you?
What Houston ISD commented was that whenever possible, they help or provide expertise like pro bono. And so they said that other school systems in Texas and outside of Texas have reached out to them. And so this is sort of part of this reach out that they get or queries that they get as it pertains to what they're doing in Houston. So that's what Houston ISD's comment is regarding that.
You report some elected trustees are calling for an investigation into all of this. Of course, the elected trustees have no oversight over the district. It's run by a state-appointed board of managers. Has anyone on the board of managers said anything about this or expressed any desire to ask Miles about it?
No. What I received was a comment from the Board of Managers president, Rick Campo, and he said that they were aware of Superintendent Miles's providing expertise, pro bono work to school systems that are interested in the reform initiatives in Houston ISD. They did not speak specifically to International Leadership of Texas. The comment regarding International Leadership of Texas and the board's awareness came from Houston ISD.
Nusaiba Mizan is an education reporter for the Houston Chronicle. Nusaiba, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, more education news as our Houston 2026 series continues. We discuss state takeovers, standardized testing, vouchers, and other education stories and developments that we can expect this year. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Hi, I'm Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold Brewing Company, proud supporters of Houston Public Media. Right now, with your $60 donation, you can choose tickets to News and Brews. This member-exclusive event takes place February 17th. Enjoy a pint, connect with fellow NPR fans, and meet the Houston Public Media newsroom in person. Select News and Brews tickets when you donate at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
I'm Elsa Chang. That story on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Starts today at 3.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from the Clarion at Brazosport College, presenting the Westerly's Brass Quartet, performing in concert on Friday, January 16th. More information at brazosport.edu/Clarion.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Baylor College of Medicine. With 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. All this week, we are exploring what issues and ideas Houstonians may most often face this year. In the world of education, we'll see the rollout of vouchers, various court challenges will play out over controversial state laws. HISD is not the only district facing state takeovers. Outside organizations may partner more with some Texas districts, and there are the perennial debates over standardized testing. Those are likely to continue. That's just maybe the tip of the educational iceberg in terms of stories we may examine this year. Bianca Seward covers education for Houston Public Media and joins us now to talk about it all. Bianca, good morning.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And as we chat, we welcome you to our conversation as well with questions or comments about what we may see in education here in 2026 across Greater Houston. You can call or text us at 713-440-8870. You can email us at talk@houstonmatters.org. You can also comment on our live video stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. I guess the biggest story to follow in 2026 in education has got to be the rollout of school vouchers across the state. How will that program work?
Yeah, I would agree. I think voucher is kind of the top of mind for people covering or following education stories this year, something that Governor Abbott's been wanting to pass for quite some time now. And the $1 billion program will work by directing some taxpayer funds to families that are seeking educational opportunities outside of the public education system. So on average, kids or families are going to get about $10,000 to put towards private school tuition costs, or they can use it for their homeschooling tuition. They can't pay for like a family member to be the teacher, but they could use it towards courses online that are approved or any other materials that they might need.
Who is this purportedly designed for?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations about who these programs are intended to help. And there's a lot of advertising that they give opportunities to lower income families that might not be able to attend private schools because the tuition costs are so high. So that's who they are often advertised for. But what we see in other states is that's not always who takes advantage of the program. People that when I looked at other states, very high percentages, over 60%, some like in Arkansas as high as 90% of people who were enrolling in the voucher program were already private school attendees. So in those states and in those cases, sometimes they end up working as tax breaks for families that are already investing in private school education rather than moving families from public education schools that they don't want to be in and into the private school.
And the math makes sense if you're talking about 10, 11 grand, something like that, towards a private school of education of 30 grand or more a year in some cases, then only those who already could afford private school are going to be going to that school.
That's exactly right. At best, $10,000 oftentimes just subsidizes the cost of private school tuition. Oftentimes, it just far exceeds what they're able to get from the state. So they definitely help, but they don't cover everything, even as far as tuition or the uniforms that are required or transportation costs because they're not taking the bus. So it doesn't always make it free.
What are some lingering questions that you have about the private schools that are likely to be taking part in the program here in the first year?
Yeah, since it was just passed last summer and it's under control of the Texas Comptroller's Office, there's still a lot of questions about how the program will be rolled out. We know that in December, they opened up the application portal for private schools and other programs to apply to be part of the network that parents and families could use these vouchers in. And when I talked to Erin Baumgartner at the Houston Education Research Consortium, she wanted to know how these schools were going to be vetted. What qualities did they have to have? What qualifications did they have to pass in order to be, certified for this kind of program? Are the families who are taking this voucher money and putting it into the private school education, are they highly vetted schools? Are they high quality schools, and we just don't know what the vetting process is going to be or what scrutiny they're going to be held to.
Lawmakers last year passed laws surrounding public education that are being challenged in court. What laws and what challenges?
There's a couple that I'm going to be watching for this semester, if you will. On January 20th, the Fifth Circuit of Appeals is going to hear oral arguments from Texas and Louisiana on the Ten Commandments law. And so that's one that people have been kind of watching. We know there's been a few injunctions issued in September, I believe, and in August as well, to stop the implementation of the Ten Commandments law. That's the one where public school districts have to have a poster hanging in the classroom, in every single classroom, that shows the Ten Commandments. So that's one that we're going to be looking at. And we're also looking to see a decision from Judge Eskridge on the kind of sprawling parental rights law. There's a few key provisions that a couple of different organizations are hoping to stop. And those are the Don't Say Gay, the GSA club ban, the inclusivity ban. There's a couple of different things that they're looking to stop.
Let's talk about each of these in a little more detail. What are the arguments for and against, at least in court, the Ten Commandments law?
Yeah, the people who filed the injunction for or sought the injunction for the Ten Commandments law say it infringes on First Amendment rights. And the judge in those cases, Beery, agreed that it, pushed values of Christianity. Now, the state argues that the Ten Commandments are part of the nation's history and heritage. So it's not about forcing Christianity, but it's just about reflecting those values in the classroom. The injunctions have been issued, so there might be some merits to the argument that it does infringe on First Amendment rights. So we'll have to see what the Fifth Circuit's going to say. They're going to be hearing arguments from Texas and Louisiana. Louisiana, the first to pass the kind of Ten Commandments law. So it'll be interesting to see where we land after that.
What about the arguments for and against the state's parental rights law and what it is seeking to limit, in particular in public schools, about LGBTQ plus related matters?
Yeah, that parental rights law is a sprawling law. It really covers a lot of different parental rights that are allowed now in Texas. This one is just seeking to stop 4 key provisions of the law, and that's going to be I'm just looking back here at my notes real quick. the Don't Say Gay ban, the GSA Club ban, the inclusivity ban, as well as one second, and the social transitioning, excuse me. And so what they're looking to stop is people not being able to start a GSA club band on their campus if they want, being able to use the kind of pronouns that they want, that they're preferred, names that they prefer. And so the plaintiffs in that case are hoping to stop prevent kids from not being able to use the names that they'd like or the pronouns that they like. And the state says that this is protected speech. So, classroom speech is government speech to some extent. So we'll have to see how Judge Eskridge rules. We heard arguments for that in December, I believe, and we still yet haven't seen a ruling.
All right, let's talk takeovers. And we're not, for once, talking about Houston ISD. There are lots of other districts that are being taken over by the state. Where? Who and what?
Yeah, there are a number of new takeovers. In the fall, we saw 4 school districts come under state control, and that's going to be Fort Worth, Lake Worth, Connolly, and Beaumont. Fort Worth is appealing their takeover, so we're not sure where that will land. But if they don't succeed, that means by next fall, there will be 8 independent school districts will be under active state control. We're also looking to watch, it's Wichita Falls as well, that might be added to the list. That's one that's been kind of on the cusp. They have... They've partnered with Third Future Schools. It's a public charter school network started by our state-appointed Superintendent Mike Miles, and have submitted to the TEA, the Texas Education Agency, that's a proactive solution to prevent a takeover. So we'll have to see if Texas Education Commissioner Mike Miles agrees with that.
Yeah, that's one of the provisions that if there's a district with a failing school after a certain number of years, that one way they can avoid the state takeover for, I believe it's 2 school years, is if they partner with some outside entity. And that doesn't mean they won't be taken over 2 years later. It just staves off that for a time.
It basically puts a pause on the accountability system. So the state will back off and say, okay, we're going to give you this time to partner and see if you're able to improve the standings of your school.
We, of course, have followed everything with HISD and the takeover. But as you said, we could see as many as 8 districts run by the state within the next year. Why are we seeing this seeming rise in state takeovers of public school districts?
Yeah, it does seem like there's been a jump. Right? And 4 being taken over last fall, it's catching people's eye. And that's because in 2021, a new law was passed that expanded the Texas Education Agency's authority. So that might be part of why we're able to see, Commissioner Mike Miles really get more involved on the district level.
Top performing schools are eligible to pursue something called the 1882 Partnership Program. What is it?
Yeah, it's a partnership program where some schools in the district would be allowed to partner with a charter or nonprofit school for increased autonomy over things like instruction, operations, hiring, evaluations. The idea is that if your high school, or I believe it's middle school as well, is performing at such a level, you might be able to partner with a charter, partner with a nonprofit, and get back some of the agency that you had prior to the takeover. Now, this is very high-performing schools. So there's only 4 that are right now being considered for the partnership, and that's going to be Challenge Early College High, Energy Institute High, Houston Academy for International Studies, and the Kinder High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. Those are the 4 that are being considered now for the partnership. It does have to be approved by the board as well.
And again, that's in Houston ISD, 4 schools, Kinder HSPVA being the last of those. When might that happen?
We might see them come. They're going to be reviewed by the Board of Managers as early as February. So we could see that in the next few weeks to see if those schools are able to move forward with the partnership.
And what do supporters and opponents respectively say about 1882?
I talked to Duncan Klusman when I first reported on this back in October, and
This is the former Spring Branch superintendent, now with the University of Houston.
Yes, exactly. And he had implemented something similar when he was at Spring Branch, and so he does see the benefits of this. It allows schools to kind of regain some of that autonomy, some of that agency, and make decisions for themselves that work best for them and their students. So he really saw it as a positive and like a good, bold move by the district. When I talked to the Houston Federation of Teachers, they were less thrilled about the partnership and saw it as a way, one member told me, a way to charter out the district. So I don't think that they're as favorable to it. I don't think they look as kindly to the idea of moving forward with this partnership. They have concerns.
There's also a partnership called the Houston Promise. What is it? and who's eligible for it.
Yeah, and the Houston Promise looks to give partnerships to those lower rated schools. So those are the C and D rated schools. Remember, we don't have any F rated schools in Houston ISD anymore. And those will partner those lower rated schools with nonprofits and local businesses in the area to give them, pay for teacher appreciation lunches, pay for student achievement things. It's paying for beauty campus beautification projects. So it's another way to help kind of uplift those lower rated schools.
All right. Between vouchers, 1882, the Houston Promise program, sure sounds like outside entities are going to exert more and more influence on public schools one way or another. Is there adequate public scrutiny of what they're going to be doing?
Not at this moment. We don't have all the details about how these partnerships will come to be or will be vetted or will be monitored. That's going to be, I think, up to, the public and reporters to be asking those questions to making sure that we understand how the programs are being developed. For example, with the Houston Promise, I'd asked repeatedly about how much money those lower rated schools might get, that some of the money is up to the principal's discretion on how to spend. So I think staying on top of asking these questions about how much money is being punched into these schools and how is it being used will be important in order to really see how successful these programs were.
Finally, last year, lawmakers voted to replace the very unpopular STAR tests. What standardized testing will students experience instead, and starting when?
Yeah, it's not going to start fully for a couple of years. So they're looking at the 2027-2028 start date for this. And it's going to change that one large STAR test at the end of the year, which, the debate on the Hill, the debate at the Capitol when they first talked about it was producing a lot of anxiety for students. So they're looking to move away from that one cumulative test at the end of the year and punctuate the year with 3 smaller tests. That won't come until 2027-2028. What we will see this year, as early as this year, is a couple of minor tweaks that are hopefully able to mitigate some of those anxiety concerns. Some things that are out is the Monday ban, which previously you weren't allowed to schedule a STAR test on a Monday. Now the districts will have that opportunity. It's up to the districts to schedule. So just check with your district if your test is going to be given on a Monday. They might not choose to do that as well. There's going to be some test anxiety mitigation where they have to make a concerted effort to, ease a student's potential anxiety around the exam and give directions in multiple different ways so that the students feel read in or feel prepared to take the test. And results are going to be easier to access. They have to give parents easier access to the portals and notify them when results are available so the parents can stay up to date on when those scores are available.
Lots to follow this year in education. Bianca Seward covers it for Houston Public Media. Bianca, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And just ahead, we mark the 25th anniversary of the launch of Wikipedia by learning about Wikipedia edit-a-thons that take place across Greater Houston. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Support comes from Holocaust Museum Houston, a cultural institution offering immersive exhibits featuring authentic film footage, artifacts, and more, focused on history, education, and remembrance. Details at hmh.org.
Houston Public Media is like the University of Houston system, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Today is the 25th anniversary of the founding of Wikipedia. That's right. For a quarter century now, humanity has crowdsourced the creation, editing, hyperlinking, and fact-checking that makes up the world's largest, most pedantic, and usually right, but often at least a little bit wrong online encyclopedia. That at least a little bit wrong part brings us to something that happens from time to time here in Houston, what are called edit-a-thons. They are built around specific Houston area topics, and basically they're workshops during which Houstonians create or edit existing Wikipedia articles on a subject, complete with citations, related resources, and info about engaged organizations. Last year, Meredith Nudo wrote about Houston-area edit-a-thons for Houstonia magazine. She joins us now along with Jaison Oliver, who since 2016 has been among Houstonians organizing them. Meredith, Jaison, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, appreciate you having us on, and it's good to see you again, Jaison.
Hey, Meredith.
Hey.
Meredith, what prompted you to want to dig into edit-a-thons that take place here in the Houston area?
Well, it got started with I edit Wikipedia myself just on my own, and I was interested in learning more about the coding element and in our community. So I looked it up, and I had if there were any edit-a-thons, because I knew that those were a thing, and I saw that a couple months after I'd searched, there would be an edit-a-thon focused mainly on female artists at the Menil. And so I signed up for it and was super excited. And then I decided to pitch to my editor writing about it because it was something that I was really excited about. And so
it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's always fun for everybody. Like,
right.
It's such a good time.
And I saw that nobody in the city was really writing about the edit-a-thons. So I was like, well, may as well feed two birds with one scone here and, learn something with the edit-a-thon, but also write about it and let people know. So I come from a place of deep, deep nerdery, wanting to do it myself and then thinking, well, if I like it in a city of, 2 million, 2.5 million, greater Houston area, 4 million people, surely someone else wants this information.
Nerdery, you're in the right studio.
Exactly.
Jaison, what ultimately, I described what happens, but what's the purpose? Why do this?
Yeah, well, I'm not a nerd. No, just kidding. I think similarly, what I first saw, and this month actually marks 10 years since I started editing back in January of 2016. And I remember seeing an article just talking about the disparities in terms of Wikipedia in the editing circle. So back then they were saying, fewer than 10% of editors are women, mostly American, mostly white, like mostly English speaking, all of that. So many disparities, which affects the representation of people on Wikipedia. So you see fewer than 20% of biographies in Wikipedia are about women, right? So then when you bring in all these other factors of race and nationality and ability, like all that affects who's represented on Wikipedia. So it just seemed like an easy way to make a really big impact. And in the time of AI, where all of these like AI models are training on Wikipedia, it has so much more of an impact because that is what's feeding the information that people just assume kind of pops out of nowhere.
So you're getting at what's maybe missing on Wikipedia, but another piece of this, as I understand it, is sometimes it's a question of, well, there are things that are being discussed in the world and people are using facts that in fact are not facts and are wrong, and maybe we could use one of these workshops to correct the record. Is that a fair
Absolutely. Absolutely. At one of the more recent things when I'm doing workshops that I talk about is this whole conversation about the Gulf of America, right? Gulf of America versus but this is a thing, right? Deciding what to title an article, and there's a whole debate, and you can see that debate play out in real time about which is going to be chosen for the main article title and why. And it's great to be able to see that happen because you can't see that within a traditional encyclopedia, right? But you can see it on Wikipedia, and that kind of debate is really important for all topics, but especially some of these more contentious ones.
Agreed. There's also a transparency there, and just speaking as a journalist, I can't always show everybody my interviews, my fact-checking documents, things like that. So the transparency with Wikipedia, I think, helps train people to ask not just where their information comes from, but how it comes.
Absolutely.
From, how people discuss the information that gets to them. So I feel like that's very important because a lot of the discussions that they have at Wikipedia internally look like some of the discussions that we have at Houstonia as journalists, things that we can't necessarily show the public.
Now, getting back to edit-a-thons here in Houston, Meredith, you mentioned one on women in the arts here in Houston. What are some of the other subjects that you found past edit-a-thons have tackled?
Well, there is Dr. Diana Strassman at Rice University. she started out again, kind of, you mentioned a lot of gender disparities. She started out with biographies of notable women for herself and her students, and then expanded from there into biographies of notable people of color, because again, there was another disparity. She has since gone on, and this is a very, very, very Houston-y topic, but she does a lot of fighting misinformation on climate change as well. And I interviewed Jaison for the article as well, but Jaison can speak for Jaison.
Right.
So,
and I think one of them that you did involved some false claims that you wanted to counter about Houston's crime rate.
Oh, absolutely.
So tell us about that.
I mean, the whole conversations around crime, a lot of information in Houston are just like fed by talking points that aren't actually backed up by facts. And so we'll hear things like, HPD is understaffed. And then you'll see coverage in the media that says, actually, that's not true, but that doesn't make it into the overall conversation, right? So correcting the record in terms of some of those things is really important. But then also thinking about something that is really important, like Alert Houston, right? Which is our emergency notification system. Like, didn't have a Wikipedia article, but this is a really important thing that is undersubscribed. How do people find information about this? Because obviously they're not getting enough information about it. I created the article for Alert Houston because I thought that this was something that was really important for people to know about.
and it was, I loved talking to you about that. I thought it was such a very smart and clever way to use the tools that you have.
I could see, though, Jaison, how some might characterize correcting the record on a particular topic as spinning the stats in your favor or in favor of a position, a political position you may take, versus, and eliminating stats that don't support it. How do you protect against doing that when you're, say, editing existing Wikipedia articles?
Every reliable editor has to cite their sources. That's what you're taught in any kind of session where you're learning to edit Wikipedia. So all of my sources are well cited, right? I'm citing Houston Public Media. I'm citing Houston Chronicle. I'm citing Texas Monthly. So that is, I am always citing my sources. So prove me wrong. I'm perfectly happy to fight it out in the talk pages, in the articles, but my sources are easily visible about what's going on in terms of these topics.
How do you know if your goal of correcting the internet record, at least of a given subject, actually worked, that Houstonians were, in fact, better informed about the topic?
Honestly, much of the time, it just makes me feel better. But I know that, honestly, when, for example, like I mentioned, Alert Houston, anytime somebody is searching for information about Alert Houston or anything, the Wikipedia article is the first thing that shows up in most traditional search engines, especially Google, DuckDuckGo, anything like that. So I know that if I'm creating an article on something like this, it's going to come to the top of the to the top, right? I create an article about the Harris County Constables. That's going to show up at the top when somebody's searching for information about the constables. And I think that kind of information is really important because we don't talk about the contract deputy program and things like that's really important as we're looking at the issues of safety and budget issues in the city and county. These issues are really important and need to be top of mind, in my opinion.
Meredith, you said you came to this topic because you were editing articles on your own. How would you compare the experience of attending an edit-a-thon to doing this work by yourself? What's different about it?
Well, one of the big ones was that, like I said, the first one that I went to was at the Menil. And Donna, shout out to Donna, is the librarian there. And we had access to the library. Mm-hmm. We had access to a lot of very rare, very expensive books that if I had done the research on my own, I would not have been able to access it. And Donna is extremely generous, even outside of the context of an edit-a-thon. If you are working on editing a Wikipedia just on your own, you can send her an email and say, hey, can I look at this book and do some fact checking to make sure that this article is accurate that I'm working on? And she'll let you come in, schedule an appointment. Some of the rarer books she might have to handle instead, but you can look at it, take notes. And so that's why I love edit-a-thons. That's why I appreciate being here to talk about them, because I would love to see more places that have access to these very difficult to find resources, local archives, local libraries that have things that we can't, maybe we hop on eBay and look for this book, but it's $5,000 because it's been out of print for, or it's a book that's 200 years old, something like that. So in my mind, something like an edit-a-thon democratizes knowledge. You are working with people that have different life experiences, different knowledge bases to work from, more than just on your own.
Jaison, on this 25th anniversary of Wikipedia, would you characterize it as ultimately a benefit or liability to humanity that we have this crowdsourced online encyclopedia that, let's face it, can be so easily changed? Like you can go in and do an edit-a-thon, do what you believe has corrected the record, and then 10 minutes later, somebody from halfway around the world is logged in and they've edited it back.
Yeah, yes. I think Wikipedia and the norms and values that are exemplified through editing and this editor community of Wikipedia absolutely are a benefit to society, and I think can be a great model for the ways that we share and interpret information collectively, especially in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Finally, what do you each think we'll need Houstonians to do a future Wikipedia edit-a-thon about? Give me a subject that you think, oh man, we should organize one of those.
I would love to see more information about disability rights here in Houston, because we are not a very infrastructurally sound city for people with physical disabilities. You look at our sidewalks. They're sidewalks to nowhere. Even as an able-bodied person, I'm constantly tripping and falling, and I would love to see also a look at pedestrian deaths, which is a massive issue here, particularly after we have been demolishing all of our bike lanes because ?
Yeah.
So I feel like safety, you mentioned safety with, the police and the constabulary here, but I also think just general infrastructural safety as well. A look at the fact that we have some of the worst congestion in Texas and the relationship between that and freeway expansion.
Yeah.
As well. So I think infrastructurally, that's not my area of expertise. I mostly edit a lot of video game and comic book art.
That's
pages.
Important too.
It is because it's art. And but I am very happy to talk to people that know more than me about making articles about these and some of the local efforts to to restore bike lanes. The problem that I run into sometimes is that for ethical reasons, I can't use my own articles and my own research as a source. So anytime that I want to write about something that has a Houston tie, I have to look outside of my own resource base and my own research because, it's not for self-promotion.
There's a coverage gap here for sure that really affects the ways that we're able to edit Wikipedia because, like I said, citations are really important there. I would say related to that, the political decisions that go into whether we have safe infrastructure directly ties into the amount of people that are editing Wikipedia and talking about the people that we have. So, for example, many of our sitting city council members, even those that are about to term out, don't have Wikipedia articles. Now, all of the Black women on city council currently don't have a Wikipedia article, just as an example of like how that looks in terms of gender and racial gaps. But yeah, I think there is a great opportunity to add more information about Houston's political systems so that people can better understand what's going on, because Houston is a very like behind closed doors, these things just kind of happen and the general public has no idea of how the sausage gets made. I would love to see more of that directly tied in, and I want to shout out my friend Erica, Black Girls Who Brunch, blogger and Politico, who really helped me to like look into and think about how to cover more about local politics in Wikipedia.
Jaison Oliver is a community organizer who puts together Wikipedia edit-a-thons. Meredith Nudo is senior culture editor for Houstonia. Thank you both for talking with us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us. I
spoke with Jaison Oliver and Meredith Nudo Wednesday afternoon. Still to come, FIFA officials say the World Cup could bring up to $1.5 billion in economic activity to Houston. But who really sees that money? We discuss as Houston Matters continues.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Support comes from the Houston Automotive Show at NRG Center, highlighting the latest vehicles, off-roading adventures, and automotive technology displays within the combined auto and boat event. More information on schedules, exhibitors, and venue details at automotiveshow.com.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is made possible in part by Ellen Benninghoven and Dr. Michael Schaefer, and with gifts from listeners like you.
World Cup organizers say Houston could see 500,000 visitors during the 3 weeks that 7 matches take place here this summer. And the influx of people could generate what FIFA estimates to be as much as $1.5 billion in economic activity here. But just who sees that money? We'll discuss that in a few minutes. First, Houston Public Media's Michael Adkison has this report.
On a cool Friday in December, hundreds of soccer fans gathered at Little Woodrow's East downtown to watch the 2026 World Cup final draw, determining which teams would be in each group and which matches could come to Houston.
I'm supposed to be working on the clock, so I'm actually behind the scenes.
That's Herman. He didn't want to share his last name because he wasn't supposed to be there, but he felt this was a moment he couldn't pass up.
Football it's a language, it's a culture, it's heritage. You see the ball playing, it's a sport of the people.
With 7 matches in Houston, officials are estimating as many as 500,000 people are going to come to the city for the World Cup. That's the equivalent of Houston's population increasing by 20% for just 3 weeks.
If everybody can think back to what it was like to have the Super Bowl here.
Chris Canetti is president of Houston's World Cup host committee.
It's as though we're hosting 7 Super Bowls in 21 days. Each one of the games from Houston will be broadcast to a worldwide audience of 200 million people. The Super Bowl gets 125 million.
Canetti characterizes his job as being in charge of all things World Cup related in Houston. It's a role he's been in since 2018, shortly after FIFA announced North America would host the 2026 World Cup. At first, his task was convincing FIFA that Houston would be a great host city. Now, his job is putting that into practice.
We have a contract with FIFA that says we're obligated to do certain things to make the World Cup happen here in Houston. So the main thing that this host committee does is it fulfills that contract, again, on things like safety and security and transportation and stadium improvements, and you name it. We have to set the table and make sure the venue is ready for the party that's about to come, and then FIFA brings the party.
That includes covering up the name of NRG Stadium, where the matches will take place. The World Cup is particular about its sponsors, and the stadiums are going to be referred to by the name of the city where they're located. So, NRG Stadium for the World Cup will be called Houston Stadium. But there are other bigger plans in the next 5 months. The Houston Host Committee will hold a month-long free fan festival in East Downtown, where fans can watch every single match through the entirety of the World Cup. Renderings depict it looking like a small music festival. Airbnb, one of the World Cup's official sponsors, is investing $1 million in a 7-mile walkable path from that fan festival all the way to the stadium. Airbnb's head of policy, Laura Spangen, says as many as 31,000 guests from around the world could stay in an Airbnb in Houston.
That's going to translate into about $372 million in GDP. Generated by travel on Airbnb in and around Houston.
Houston also had one of the biggest surges in online searches for inbound flights, according to travel agency Kayak. Sarah Kennedy is a travel trend expert with Kayak.
There's a year-over-year increase of 250%.
She says Houston also had a 250% increase in flight searches from 1 week to the next after that group selection draw in December.
Houston is definitely at the top of the list. The only 2 host cities that are currently surpassing Houston in terms of a surge in interest are Boston and Dallas.
Already, FIFA officials say this is the most demand they've ever seen for a World Cup. As of late December, FIFA reported fans requested 150 million tickets to the tournament. Officials estimate the World Cup could bring a $1.5 billion economic impact to Houston alone. For News 88.7 In Depth, I'm Michael Adkison.
And Michael Adkison joins us now. Michael, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Do estimates like we get before big events like the World Cup tend to bear out?
That's a great question. And, you know, we do have a precedent here in Houston. That's something that a lot of officials have touted, is the fact that Houston is no stranger to hosting big events like this. Of course, we won't know until after the fact, but, you know, there is precedent for, you know, these predictions holding up, generally speaking. So the easiest one to cite is the 2017 Super Bowl predictions beforehand. And, you know, these were commissioned by the NFL, and the Super Bowl host committee said that there was going to be about $350 million generated by this. And then after the Super Bowl, when it was all said and done, the number that they came up with was $347 million. So, you know, generally within the ballpark. It's not totally out of the whack. Obviously, there are extraneous factors that could affect turnout to the 2026 World Cup. And these are questions that every host city is facing. The biggest one being immigration. What is the immigration situation going to be looking like by June? Will people be able to get into the United States from other countries to watch the World Cup? But bearing in mind, you know, $1.5 billion isn't just $350 million from the Super Bowl times 7. You know, this is a number that they've, you know, analyzed and come to, and that's what their estimate is. But again, we won't know until after the fact.
Exactly who among Houstonians is most likely to benefit economically from the World Cup and who isn't?
Sure. So the easiest answer is that businesses that are tied to the host committee, the Houston host, you know, as mentioned in that piece, the FIFA is very particular about who their sponsors are, but the Houston host committee is trying to go out of the way to get Houston businesses get their name tacked onto certain things. So, for example, the host committee has launched a submission process for businesses to make certain commitments to sustainability, and if they do achieve those commitments, they can be put in a tourism guide for people who come to Houston for the World Cup. So, you know, that's a way that businesses and hotels, restaurants, they're going to be able to tack their name onto something World Cup related that's more or less official. But, you know, one of the groups that probably isn't going to win, as mentioned, is NRG Stadium, for example. You know, they're not going to have their name on this business. But one important factor that's going to go into all of this is that Houston itself, Houston, the city as itself, is clearly benefiting compared to, say, DFW, where, you know, there's Dallas, but there are so many different suburbs that go outside of Dallas. For example, the fact that it's called Dallas Stadium and the stadium isn't even in Dallas, it's in Arlington. That's a big controversy for the DFW residents that, you know, should it be called the Arlington Stadium and factors like that. So while you may not hear Katy and Fort Bend get as much attention here in Houston, the fact that this World Cup is entirely based within the Houston city limits, you're going to see the city get, you know, clear benefits from that.
Aside from attention, name recognition, all of that, back to the economics of it, are there costs that may not be baked into these estimates that, you know, are things we're incurring now or during the World Cup or after that could offset any economic benefits?
Right. So as mentioned, there are those extraneous factors that we really can't predict, like immigration. But, you know, what we've heard time and time again, as we've led up to this World Cup, as well as, you know, generally any time a city has a major global event like this, say the Olympics, you hear those sorts of horror stories where a city prepares all the infrastructure for a big event like the Olympics, and then it ends up not getting a net positive because they built so much to, you know, host all these people from around the world. Because Houston has hosted several large events like the Super Bowl, like the Final Four, like the World Series, there's not that much of a fear that there's going to be a net negative because of all the infrastructure development. That being said, another factor that has really been flagged is that the Houston host committee that's making all these developments is not using taxpayer money. This is all donations. This is raised from different groups like Airbnb that's going to be able to invest in that green corridor. So they view essentially anything that happens as a net positive because that money's not coming from taxpayers, say.
Very briefly, could the additional crowds inside the city limits lead some Houstonians who can to head out of town while the World Cup is here, offsetting some of the projected spending?
Well, if you're like me, you're still wanting to go to Dallas to go see Argentina play. So, you know, while there is that factor, Houston is very much one of the top destinations for this, particularly because of the fact that it's hosting 2 Portugal matches, which means that Houstonians and, you know, people who come to Houston may have one of the last chances to see Cristiano Ronaldo play in a World Cup. So that's a major pull factor. Plus, you've got Germany and the Netherlands. So a lot of factors point to Houston still being one of the biggest contenders for economic pull.
So even if some folks decide, no, I'm getting out of town while this is going on, I don't want to be part of all of whatever it is, it's going to be more than offset by folks coming in.
That's what certainly officials are saying, yes.
Houston Public Media's Michael Adkison. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that'll do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. On tomorrow's show, we will conclude our week-long series on Houston 2026 with a look at the year ahead in transportation. Also, how a singing group of teenage girls from Southeast Texas traveled the world to perform for troops from World War II through Vietnam. We learned the story of the Melody Maids. Plus, this week's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us tomorrow for those and other Houston Matters.